Hello listeners, we've partnered with ClassicFootballShirts.com where you can get your classic, rare, retro, vintage football shirts for your football team of your choice. I recommend a Parma kit. You know, there's some lovely options on the website. There's a referral link on our Twitter or in the description of the YouTube video. Click there, follow it through and enjoy. I say Parma, get it on you, it looks lovely. They're from the 90s. Ooh. Listeners, good evening, welcome back. It's For The Fans show. It's the 1st of December when this comes out, folks. It's December already.
Advent calendars are open.
Have you got an advent calendar this year, Callum?
I do, yeah.
Have you really?
I do.
Yeah.
Jack, you've got one as well?
Yeah,
What's
we
yours,
get
Jack?
one in our work. It's a Peppa Pig one.
Is it?
Yes, I will tweet a picture out about it tomorrow.
Lovely, I look forward to that.
Authenticity.
Kino, have you got like a branded advent calendar?
I think it's like an M&S one or something.
Well, of course it is.
That's a bit upper class, isn't it?
No, not
Waitrose. Do Waitrose do advent calendars? They probably do like solid gold inside
Probably.
them. I've not got an advent calendar, but then you can check out my advent calendar series on youtube.com/.
Hey, there we go.
Jack's doing one
Early
as well.
bench.
Okay, folks, we are going to kick things off, but not with a feature this week. We felt it was more appropriate as a podcast to talk about the tragic events involving Chapecoense, the Brazilian football club, and obviously the horrific plane crash that happened as the plane approached Colombia. 71 people died, 21 journalists, and almost the entire first team and managerial staff. 6 players have survived. Left back Alan Ruschel, I think that's how you pronounce it. If we get any of these Brazilian pronunciations wrong, I apologise now. Backup keeper Follman, who had one of his legs amputated, and sadly the centre back Neto also was involved in the crash but has survived. Goalkeeper Danilo did survive initially, but later died in hospital. 9 football players from the team didn't travel before the crash. They were going to go and take part in the Copa Sudamerica finals, which is the equivalent to the UEFA Cup in Europe.
Okay.
And obviously that's now been essentially called off. Nacional of Colombia offered to concede the tie. And I don't know, has that actually officially happened yet, or is that still being decided?
A few, really nice gestures from various, also the clubs in their league and a few other things like that.
Yeah, Brazilian clubs have decided to loan out players for free and have sent a request to the Brazilian FA saying that the club should be immune from relegation for 3 years, which, it seems like the right thing to do, but for the clubs in Brazil to unanimously decide this is what we should do and this is the right thing to do, I think it's fantastic. And I think while it is a tragic event, the unity shown not just from Brazilian football but from world football for the team and the sadness that's been shown across the world, not just by football people but everyone. An entire team has essentially been wiped out from a plane crash.
Crazy. It's almost impossible to get your head around. Seeing, there's a lot of stuff's been going around on social media. That the videos of them celebrating the victory, the semi-final that they won. Just days before. Obviously, there have been, I think, since English and British fans will immediately think of Munich in 1958 and make comparisons with that. There have been a number of sort of crashes since then over the years involving football teams. And this is another one that is, nonetheless incredibly heartbreaking.
Yeah,
it's just a lot to take in, and I can't even begin to imagine not just the families of everyone who died, but also the people who were meant to be on that plane and didn't get on the flight. Players that were injured and other members of the staff and everyone else at the club. Just how big a chunk of their lives have just been wiped out. So,
It's interesting because Jack made the point before we started recording that we three are in our sort of early 20s. Late 20s for me. Blimey, that's horrendous in itself. Regardless, we've not had. I can't remember anyway something this severe. The only thing that sort of strikes me as sort of a big event that affected football was when it was one of the teams in the African Cup of Nations boss was attacked.
Yes.
Remember that a few years ago? And that was seen to be obviously a big deal. Of course, we had the bombings in France as well, outside the stadium. But we've not, obviously in this country, the Munich air disaster was something that is remembered still now. Of course it is. Obviously. But Jack, you made the point that we've not had this kind of thing happen. You obviously everyone is aware this can happen, but as sort of people our age, we don't really ever see this happen, and like I feel, I don't know if you, I feel sad, very, very, very sad. In fact, talking about it, I've been part of football teams sort of most of my youth life. I was part of football teams, and it feels as if this could have happened to any football team. This isn't just like they weren't picked out. Obviously, this was just that. It's the idea, isn't it, that it could happen to any team at any time. And
you made the point as well when you first brought it up about the fact that 20 journalists were also killed. It's a huge loss for just the culture of Brazil in terms of. Yeah. I mean, you do compare it to your own situation, and I'm just imagining if that journalists and personalities of the game were also killed in here in that kind of way. It's just very difficult to get your head around and heartbreaking.
Jack, do you want to say a few bits?
I think you've taken all the words out of my mouth, really. It's something that, as you said, you're always aware that can happen. And obviously disasters like this happen all the time, but I feel like when it's a group of people united in this way, and it's a team, because basically people have lost family members, a city's lost their team, and football's lost a club, essentially. And I hope that the club can fight back. Obviously, as you mentioned, the Brazilian clubs within just a few hours of the news breaking out of the severity of the situation were quick to offer open hands, and it was great to see the kind of everything kind of that was going on, because whilst this hasn't happened in our lifetimes, it's also not happened in the age of social media. Yes. And it was very interesting to see how different clubs kind of extended, their thoughts and sincerities, across all the different platforms. And also how it was reported by the press. I don't want to turn this into something negative, but one thing that did frustrate me a little bit was the hearsay that was going on.
That always happens with social media.
It does, and any disaster, and it's something that always annoys me. And it's not just the details of the disaster, it's when stuff like, PSG have said on Brazilian radio they're going to give 40 million euros or whatever, and that in fact isn't true, and it spreads like wildfire. And all it takes is one major news outlet to pick it up because someone tweeted about it who looks vaguely Brazilian on their Twitter.
Yeah.
And it
speaks in Portuguese.
Exactly, and it just kind of it spirals out of control. But I think for the most part, it showed a positive impact that social media can have, and united kind of football as a whole in a way which I can't really remember such a situation, because I'm sure for a lot of people, Chapecoense, they're not like a household name of Brazilian football for a lot of people.
They were getting there though. This is the sad thing.
Actually, I think the saddest thing is that I think for a lot of people, myself included, you kind of think of Brazilian clubs, you think of Santos, Botafogo, Vitória. There's a lot of big teams there. And the sad reality is that a lot of people won't have heard of this club's name and know of this team and actually their story, which is a fantastic story if you read into it, had it not been for this disaster.
Fourth tier of Brazilian football as recent as 2009. They're in the fourth tier.
I think the other thing that struck me was, and I know we've talked about it, but the teammates who were in the changing room, that for me, that was the point that really hit me hard, actually. Was
there's the three guys where they're sat in the dressing room, and you could obviously see some of the empty spaces. And yeah, I mean, obviously it's been spoken about a lot. I think it was right for us to talk about it briefly at the start of this week's podcast. And we'll try and continue the show to the best of our abilities. Of course, our thoughts are with everyone involved and the families that now have to try and cope with the...
I will say on a more positive note, it was very very sort of encouraging to see how the footballing community globally sort of united.
It's the absolute best of football when things like this happen. Yeah, it brings out the best in football, and it makes you realise that it's so much bigger than just a game, isn't it? It's people's lives.
I will say, I hope for the people, particularly young people on social media, who throw out insults related to disasters that have happened, not just in football but in the wider thing. Kind of take note of this. There's they call themselves rustlers on Twitter or whatever. And I hope that at least some of them kind of feel now the reality of a situation like this, because I think comments are made in light of stuff like Hillsborough, Hazel, I've screwed up the name, but Hillsborough, Munich, all those different ones. And I hope for those people it maybe makes them think twice to live through one of these, because I think, as we already said, certainly in our lifetime, and I imagine a lot of those people, it's the first time they're going to experience something like this.
With these things, they're not necessarily football disasters as much as they're people disasters. And it's that should be at the forefront. It's not. It's like this isn't a tribal thing, and it should never be. So people that do that on social media, I mean, feel free to bleep this or keep it in either way, but you're cunts. So like, That there's no other. I can't describe you in any other way than that for people that do it. And I'll be honest, I've not seen that much of it over the last few days.
No, it's been a lot better.
So hopefully it's made a few people sit up and realise that it's not acceptable and it won't be tolerated. And hopefully people in positions of power try and prevent things like that being said. I know it's difficult in this sort of day and age of social media. Anyway, we are still a Premier League podcast, though, and I think it's time to try and brighten the mood a little bit. I mean, there's no feature for Jack to win this week, but we will kick things off with some Premier League action.
We're with the Premier League podcast.
The Premier. Oh, thank you, Michael Bradley. I appreciate that.
Bob.
Is it Bartow Michael's his son, isn't it? Sorry, yes, Bob Bradley.
Yes.
I mean, we'll kick things off at Swansea. My word, boys. A 5-4.
Premier League. The Premier result.
It's the yearly 5-4 in the Premier League. Last year it was Norwich v Liverpool. I feel like most Premier League seasons you just have that game where it's
there's always one
like
mental result.
Teams don't care about defending. They don't really know what's going on.
Last year it was actually Villa beat Bournemouth. That was opening day last season. That lives long in the memory.
It was a bit weird this weekend because you kind of had the unstoppable force meets the immovable object in Spurs versus Chelsea, where you had a team that wasn't conceding against a team that wouldn't lose. This is the opposite. I don't know what the opposite of this is.
I thought you were describing Swansea Palace then. Immovable force.
It's literally the complete opposite. It's two teams who almost look like they wanted to lose this game.
Yeah.
And I don't know why Pardew's still at Palace. We talked about this last week. It's always laughable because it's the same conversation. And we talked about the fact that this game was an absolute must-win. And, well, when it's 4-3 to Palace with, 1 minute into added time, Pards is loving it. He's licking his lips. He's seen his team fight back. And then Llorente just decides he's actually going to show some World Cup form and banks in two.
What I absolutely loved was the Palace fans on Twitter going, "We've found a team who are worse at set pieces than us." And then about 10 minutes later, we're like, actually, no, we are still pretty bad at them. Because they obviously went 4-3 up and then lost 5-4. I mean, it's a ridiculous situation for Pardew. How can he stay in the job? He's got the worst record in England, has he not? Right now, as a manager?
No, he has. It's bad.
And it's not like he's in a sort of... The club aren't in a position of peril, but he's
got a very good squad.
He's put them in one. Like, this is I don't know. We're recording on the Wednesday. It looks like he's going to get another week. I mean, he's got,
2 games, they're saying, to save his job. 2 games.
It was 1 game before. Journalists always do this, just make stuff up.
The thing that annoys me is the fact he's got Southampton this weekend coming, then they've got Hull. Like, get your manager in for those 2 games. Don't wait until those 2 games are over and then look at kind of United and Chelsea, kind of proceed and go, good luck.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. I don't know what happens next. I mean, you say 2 games... I don't know what I believe anymore.
We actually talked about Palace a lot last week, and I feel like it's just more of the same. Swansea, I didn't think they had 5 goals in them. I feel like Leroy Fer has been a beacon of hope this season for them, banging them in.
He has, and I feel sorry for Fer because he's been relegated with every club he's been at.
He's the new Quasi, isn't he? He's the new Quasi, let's face it.
But he's actually playing very well for them, and he's contributing quite a lot.
It says a lot about Swansea season when just under 30% of their goals this season happened in this game. Walkie said, scored 16 this season, and they scored 5 in 1 match. And like you mentioned, Swansea's team is probably a bottom 6 team, but does have the occasional player. I mean, if Llorente can get in a bit of a run, and they've got Sigurdsson there who's good as well. It's not impossible for Swansea. You wouldn't be surprised right now if Swansea were sort of mid-table.
I feel like quite similar to Borough in the sense that Llorente has a lot of experience, a lot of qualities. You know, he's got a lot of goals in Spain and internationally, and they have a not dissimilar squad to Middlesbrough, where there is quality, and they are, as you say, in certain matches, they do have match winners in that bottom half of the table.
Yeah.
And it all depends on whether or not he can get those key players like Fer and Llorente and Sigurdsson, obviously, able to pull out those moments that can win them games consistently enough.
I feel bad for Fer because you talked about the fact that 5 goals is almost a third of their goals this season. Leroy Fer's got 6 goals this season from centre mid.
Yeah,
he's coming up to half their goals for the season. Like, he must be looking around and going, not this again.
He's got against Chelsea, didn't he, Leroy Fer? I'm not mistaken.
I feel like he might have done. The issue is for Fer, I can't work out if he's actually a very good player because he never really impressed me that much at Norwich or before that QPR. But at the same time, Like, maybe he is. Like, the issue is...
Thanks,
Jack. This
is what you come to For the Fans for, this level of insight.
Because...
Is he good? He could be.
Maybe he is.
I screwed up here. But the issue I've got is I can't work out if Swansea are really, really bad and he makes them look slightly better, if he's in the form of his life, or if at Norwich and stuff, like, the teams were just significantly better than the Swansea squad now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the point I was trying to make. My brain farted.
Well, it went 1-0 Palace, then it was 1-1, then it was 3-1 to Swansea, and at that point Palace looked a little bit beaten, I dare say. James Tompkins got one back, then Corkin Benteke scored. Corkin goal, wasn't it? And then Benteke scored to make it 4-3, and that was on 84. And then in 91, Llorente gets the first of the little comeback, the mini comeback. So there were a few comebacks in this game. This was the final one, and then gets the winner. In the 93rd minute of stoppage time. It's always better when a comeback happens really late. Like if the final goal, say it was like 5-4, but the final goal was at 60, we'd be a bit underwhelmed, I feel like. But when it happens,
underwhelmed by the 2005 Champions League final, though.
No, but that did go on to penalties, Jack. So
that's true.
There was a bit more of a final end to that. You could say the final end of that game happened in that way. In terms of the actual result, though, Swansea needed this. Make no bones about it. Bob Bradley, who has got a lovely array of different clothing.
I can't work out his accent. I know it's American.
It's American, Jack.
Well, no, but American isn't really... Like, obviously, an American accent doesn't really exist because America's so big and there's so many different accents within America. Like
okay.
The idea of there being one unified American accent doesn't make sense. It just... I don't know. Where is he from?
New Jersey.
It's because he doesn't sound...
He's very well travelled, of course. And,
I feel like he's got a weird hybrid accent. And when I listened to him for the first time, I was like, I don't know what I expected him to sound like, but it wasn't that. He sounded quite happy talking to Gary Lineker, though.
He looks like a very scary man. But in interview... And I mean, that interview sort of changed my perception of him a little bit, obviously, not having heard his sort of discuss Swansea a lot. It was quite... if I was a Swansea fan, I would be quite heartened by that interview.
Do you know what he looks like? You know, at nightclubs, there's always like the massive, like big bouncers, like the big old boys. They're outside the club. And there's always sort of a shorter man who you can't work out why he's a bouncer. That is Bob Bradley. Bob Bradley's got a look of a man who shouldn't be a bouncer, but is like secretly the hardest one there.
He's taken a big jump in the Premier League hardest manager stakes, I think.
Oh, where do we put him in that? It's a good question, Keno. Who's harder than Bob Bradley right now?
Depends what the pinnacle is.
Sam Allardyce is the pinnacle if you can get there.
But he's not about at the moment. He's a bruiser as well. He's not crafty, is he? Big Sam's not pulling out some nunchucks. No, Bradley's got so many socks.
Sam Allardyce is like just changed weight classes for a little bit.
Definitely knows a martial art, I think, is fair to say.
There are some managers that would be very good at fighting just based on sort of the way they are on the touch. Klopp is just pure rage.
Conte he'd bite you and he'd gouge your eyes and all sorts. He'd fight very dirty, Conte, I think.
Mike Phelan would be like a Mitchell brother, quite literally, which would be nice. Sean Dyche, underrated hard man.
Yes.
You're not messing with Dyche under any circumstances.
I like to believe that Sean Dyche doesn't actually have like the gravelly voice he has. Like it's just an act. He has a really squeaky voice instead. Part of his hard man persona.
I wouldn't. I'm just no offense to Eddie Howe. He's a fantastic manager, but I wouldn't back him in a brawl.
No.
Oh, hang on, Bilic. My God.
Oh yes.
I think Bilic might be the winner, just for like sort of. I don't know. Basically, I say Bilic, everyone sort of nods and goes, "All right, yeah." We don't want to talk about it.
But he's a bit unhinged as well, isn't he, Bilic? Like, I'd be quite... Like, I wouldn't want to annoy him.
A little bit dead behind the eyes, is that fair?
Yeah.
Sort of, a bit of a flickering goes
Can we write to the FA and request that instead of goal difference, managers like have a wrestling match in the event of like a draw on points at the end of every season?
I think I would approve. Maybe just an arm wrestle, or in Mark Hughes' case, a handshake. Don't forget Hughes, by the way. He'd be right up for it, regardless of whether he'd win or not.
Oh, well, yeah, he was up for it with Mazzari, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
We will.
Another bit of a handshake gate.
My imagination has wandered here, but I'm wondering, technical areas at the end of the season raise up out the ground. You know, like in the old Gladiators TV show.
Yes, you get
and they have the pugil stick.
And they have to knock each other off.
Yes, that would be fantastic. I mean, I would love to think that Premier League clubs, in fighting relegation towards the end of the season, will just think, right, hang on a minute, we don't want sort of who would it be? So we don't want Alan Pardew. Well, who we're going to get in? We're going to get in Brock Lesnar. Yes, that's who we're going to get in for the final game of the season. He's going to be up against who is it? But then all of a sudden, wrestling fans, West Ham have got Goldberg. Oh my word! What a moment!
And then the Wolf comes out, Gladiators expert.
And another one bites the
I feel
dust.
like it's a very obscure 90s reference, Gladiators, for anyone not from England. Google it. It's a great TV show.
Yeah, that was my favourite song of the time.
How have we gone from
basically
Gladiators to Swansea?
Swansea Palace was 5-4. We don't know what's going on. None of it makes any sense.
Favourite little sort of post-game point of this one was Pardew came on to match the day. His team's just conceded 5 goals. First thing he does, blames the referee for gifting them the first goal. Four more goals, Alan, after that.
I love it.
That you conceded.
Pardew's like a comedy. He's just like a parody now. Alan Parody, we should call him. Can we actually do that?
Yeah,
I'll forget.
Alan Parody? No, we'll remember. Alan Parody do, maybe.
I feel like we need a nickname for every single person. It'll be Alan
Parody
Pardew.
I mean, steady, no one will
manager. They need fighting names.
Fighting names.
Pardew can be the parody. That'll be his title.
Alan the Parody Pardew.
I will say for Bob Bradley, it's obviously his first win at Swansea, and it's also the club's first win since the opening game of the season.
Yeah, apologies, Swansea fans who spent most of this just talking about hard managers.
It's before the fans' way.
In the context of sort of the season, though, it's massive for Swansea. It pulls them much closer to survival at this stage.
Absolutely.
I know 13 games gone, but they're only 2 points behind Palace, who have obviously been pulled into it with this result. 9 points for them now, not bottom of the table, thanks to Sunderland. And a little bit of hope in Wales.
Such is the nature of, as I would know quite well, such is the nature of the bottom end of the Premier League.
Talk to us about relegation battles. What are the crucial things? Not that you know, but what are the crucial things for survival?
Well, we survived for 4 years and succumbed in the 5th. You only need a few wins to really pull yourself back into contention. Because, there's a reason that all those teams are down there. And less sort of points than you think are needed.
Can I just say,
to close gaps?
Yeah.
The bottom 7 teams in the league have no more than 3 wins after 13 games. That is mad.
Yeah.
Like the amount of teams who have just drawn a lot and Leicester are down there as well. Relegation candidates.
League table doesn't lie, Jack, as they say.
League table doesn't lie, Jack.
I just find it mad that the gap between first and 5th is bigger than the gap between 13th and 20th.
Yeah. Speaking of 1st and 5th. That was lovely, didn't you, Jack? You didn't mean that, but that was great.
I did.
Chelsea 2, Spurs 1. Chelsea have stayed top after another win. I mean, they went 1-0 down, though. Spurs looked more up for it to begin with. Chelsea looked a little bit haphazard, Callum.
I thought, I think that you're right that Spurs look very good. I don't think Chelsea played too bad throughout the whole game.
No, they were much better in the second half, but I mean, they started slower.
As Jack said, I think it was a bit of a case of sort of unstoppable force against a movable object. I think they were taken aback a little bit by just how well Spurs started. Of course, Eriksen scored a very, very good goal, which he can pop up and do every now and then.
Yeah.
And I think for Spurs, it's a case of one of those times where you've not got the result you wanted, but I think they can take quite a lot of heart out of the performance, particularly as they're playing, arguably the best team in the league currently. Yeah, it was a funny game because while Spurs did play very well, it was a few sort of defensive lapses of concentration that gave Chelsea the goals. I don't think Chelsea really sort of sliced through them at any point. I don't know what you think about that.
No, you're right.
Obviously, very good finish from Eriksen, fantastic finish from Pedro, but he was given a lot of time by Dyer to do so. And of course, the Moses goal, maybe you could argue he had a little bit too much time at that back post there to slot that in. So it was a few little errors from Spurs that maybe is the story of their season a little bit, because I don't think they've been playing too badly, but it's been those key moments that have cost them again.
Is it fair to say, Jacques, that Spurs, especially in these kind of games, don't have enough to change a game? Don't have enough depth? I mean, we've said it for the past few weeks, but look at their substitutions. They're not going to help you win against Chelsea, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think an interesting thing for Spurs has been the long, drawn-out criticism, perhaps, of their midfield and their lack of kind of ability to get goals. And to an extent, obviously, Son has shut that down. I think this was Eriksen's first goal since something like March last year. It was some mad stat, like last year. He hasn't scored in a while, to my knowledge. He certainly doesn't score as many as perhaps he should. And I think a big issue for Spurs is that they do play this kind of generally one-up-top system. We've seen in games this year, they are willing to kind of throw up Cade and Janssen alongside each other. But you look at the midfield, they don't actually get that many goals with the exception of Son between them all. And particularly last year, it was something that hurt them. And I feel like...
I should say, Dele Alli chips in. He got 10 last year. He's got a few this year.
But I still feel like there's more goals there, particularly from players like Eriksen, who you kind of look at as a player who is... For a lot of people, he is kind of one of Spurs' big key players. I think it's fair to say.
His stats are very good, and he creates a lot of chances. But you'd like to see him sort of get on the end of some.
I know some people are going to go, "Well, he's not that type of player." But the difference is with some teams, you look across their entire midfield, they get goals and they get important goals. And Eriksen's got an important one here. Unfortunately, it's not made the difference. And I don't necessarily think it's so much about Spurs not being able to make an impact off the bench. Rather, certain players who actually start games aren't able to make an impact in the game itself in kind of a tangible manner in terms of getting a vital goal in terms of...
Yeah, I agree with that, but Spurs are a Champions League team. There's no excuse to not have. I don't care how many injuries you might have. They're not ravaged with them right now. They're really not.
To jump in there and say... I agree. I think that's... And they have money to spend. They spent that money this summer. They spent 30 million on Moussa Sissoko, who didn't make the squad for this game. And they also spent, I think, 12 million on Janssen. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it was in that region.
Yeah, around that,
in that region. So, for the best part of 45 maybe million quid on two players who were intended to give them depth in exactly this kind of game, where you've played a Champions League game in the week prior, and you're coming into a big game where you need high quality players to come off the bench as well as start the game. Yeah. And those two players were meant to do that. And the fact that Sissoko wasn't even in the squad, I think, says it all really about his attitude. A lot has been said about how the transfer and the money paid and the form that he had for Newcastle prior to that. And I think it's kind of a lot of the criticisms made at the time are starting to come true a little bit because he's not been good for Tottenham all year.
Well, he was compared to Wijnaldum, Kino, who started very brightly under Klopp.
Yeah,
and sort of the fees weren't massively dissimilar.
No, it's 25 for Wijnaldum.
Yeah, you're seeing the complete opposite. I'm not just picking up a Liverpool player. I'm saying like they're both. Essentially, I'm comparing Newcastle players. One's gone on to play quite well and has fit into a system.
Both under good managers, motivating managers.
And Sissoko's had a few games in the Europa League and not really featured elsewhere. It's baffling, really. But I do think Spurs, we've said it a few times, like Spurs, while they've had a good start to the season, their unbeaten run now, also their unbeaten start, doesn't look so good. They've got 6 wins, 6 draws and a loss. Now, while that's great when you've not lost yet, you're now sort of away off the top. And from what I'm hearing from Spurs fans is they believe that they're good enough to go for a title again. Well, not at the moment, you're not. 5th place, 7 points off the top, and you've just lost to the team that have gone top. A little bit of work to be done. They're sort of not fortunate, but they're lucky that Everton have fallen away. Manchester United aren't in such good form because there might have been a lot more pressure on Spurs to perform in this kind of game.
I will say Spurs have one of the worst chance conversion percentages in the Premier League at 11.7%.
I don't know what it means, but oh my God.
Well, the thing is, for Arsenal, theirs is at 21%. The only team lower is actually Southampton's.
Charlie Austin, Jack.
Well, it's not him playing up top. It's always Shane Long wasting the opportunities. So don't bring Charlie into this.
For those that are unaware,
he scored this week. We'll get
I will say as well for United, they're right down there. They're almost on par with Spurs. But
both of those make quite a bit of sense. That's that.
Both quite defensive, I would say. For Chelsea, though, on the reverse of it, stay top, concede a goal, which is a bit surprising for Chelsea at the moment.
I mean, it was an absolute screamer by Eriksen.
Not much they could do about that. If you're going to concede a goal.
Let's quickly talk about that. The Pedro goal was great, but I want to talk about Victor Moses, who has found a home as Chelsea's right wing back, folks. I mean, did you see that coming, Jack? Come on. Callum, Jack, anyone?
Yes, I did.
You saw it coming, did you?
You did, Jack.
Yeah, you saw that.
He called it.
I saw Moses coming. He parted the Red Sea.
I think it tells you,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, well means. Yeah. It's not means, well Bibled.
Well, is that a thing? It is now.
It's like the Lad Bible, but it's more
Bible
sort of
reference
official.
on point.
Bible reference on point. That's the first time I've had that ever said. I appreciate that. Callum?
He had a point to make. I've just ruined it.
Yeah, talk to me about Moses, Kino.
I think it tells you all you need to know about Antonio Conte as a manager. The fact that he has turned this player who was a bit part at best at Chelsea into looking like a candidate for their player of the season so far. Just on the sort of the impact he's had. And,
he
and
did
what
win
he's
the
brought
fan
new to the
voted
team.
Player of the Month this month.
He did,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that tells you all you know, that says everything that you need to really know, because the work that he puts in along that side, the fitness levels of the man are astounding. And you know, you always say it's a kind of thing that pundits like to trot out about three at the back. You know, the fullbacks are the key, and they get through so much running. And I think Alonso, it's funny to compare both fullbacks who have been excellent so far. Alonso a little bit more measured, a bit more of a natural defender, doesn't sort of fly up and down in quite the same way that Moses does. I know
Well,
he does like to get
word on the
forward.
street is that Baba Rahman might be recalled from his loan in January and played at left back.
Well, that would be interesting, because I think Alonso's been really good for Chelsea so far, and has been a bit more brought a bit more solidity defensively to that side. But yeah, the contrast between both sides for Chelsea are interesting, because Moses sort of channels a lot of his winger instincts, and it's really dangerous. And as we saw for his goal, really hard for teams to pick up. They may work it out, but so far, you know, it's proving incredibly useful for Chelsea to have. You know, they had that fullback, wing back already there at the club.
It looks like a Conte team to me. I know it
Yeah.
sounds obvious now, but it really does. It really looks like a team built in his image. Which
I think there were a lot of people as well who questioned whether or not three at the back and kind of five at the back would work, or even if he dare play it with his kind of centre backs at his disposal. But obviously, John Terry far gone out of the first team now.
Yeah, interesting. Well, the thing is, it's November, Jack, and he's already figured out, like, and the team are behind it. This is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to do it. Which, I mean, I'm not gonna say I didn't expect Chelsea to be good this year, but I didn't think they'd be top of the table by the beginning of December. I'll say that much. I genuinely.
Tim and Liverpool would be second.
I thought no.
I'll remind you of the first show of the season again.
We'll get those predictions at the end of the season.
I'm going to run with this.
All right. Well, let's see if they. All right, let's
I hope they
we'll see what happens.
collapse.
Oh, well, there's no need for that. Let's,
Jack, you've got all the features this year, so let me have one.
let him miss Chelsea. Let's finish off some of the Saturday fixtures, and we'll look at a few of the interesting Sunday games. Liverpool, another win for them. Sunderland, I mean, I watched this game, obviously, 10 minutes in. Sunderland haven't really got out of their half. They're literally playing with 9 at the back. Keeper, Defoe up front.
I think Jurgen Klopp described it as the most offensive team he's ever played against.
Yeah, which is crazy, isn't it? David Moyes, obviously, back on Merseyside, and he shut up shop. It was
There's some mad stat where it's like he hasn't won in his last 8 trips to Anfield at any club.
I don't feel that sorry for him. I'm going to be completely honest. Origi got a goal here, and he's looking very good coming off the bench. Obviously, Coutinho's injury, a major talking point. He's out until the new year.
We had a talk about this a few shows ago, I think, and I said Coutinho's the one player I didn't think Liverpool could replace.
Yeah, you did
and
say that,
immediate.
actually.
And I'm a little bit worried now.
Well,
when that happened, I was just like, oh, God, why did I even
How long
talk
do we
about
know he's
it?
out for now?
6 weeks.
Yeah, 5 or 6 weeks. I think someone asked me recently, and I said that I think one injury to this sort of front four of Firmino, Mane, Lallana, and who am I talking about? That's like Coutinho. One injury's fine. Another one, and we've got a problem now. As long as Lallana comes back, I think we won't feel the effects too much. Obviously, he's now going to have to call upon Sturridge or Origi to come in and fill the gap.
Well, I was about to say, you know, it may require a change of system, but Origi looked very good in the League Cup game last night, didn't he?
Yeah,
so,
what a difference a year makes for him, by the way. He has, dearie me.
I saw you tweet that.
Yeah, he's gone from being a sort of Bambi on ice to looking like he's got a little bit of everything, which I think as Liverpool fans very exciting. Milner got a late penalty as well, so that was 2-0. Sunderland stayed bottom. Liverpool continue to close down Chelsea, or try to anyway. Leicester 2, Middlesbrough 2 was an interesting game. A story of Leicester penalties, really, and Callum Chambers being a bit strange with his handling.
As I said to you, an underrated sort of foul magnet. Callum Chambers.
Foul magnet's a lovely word.
I remember,
Is that a term? I've never heard of
it
that.
is now, Jack.
Can we
It is
coin
now.
that? Because that's lovely.
We'll have it, because he's like Xhaka, actually. They've replaced, at Arsenal, they've replaced him with Xhaka, because I remember when Chambers signed for Arsenal, he picked up like 5 or 10 yellow cards in the first like 6 months of being at the club. It was. I don't know what he was thinking for that.
Yeah, it's a
particular incident.
It's a decent result for Middlesbrough. I guess it's hard because I said this before we started recording, but
yeah,
Leicester are the sort of team this year, ironically champions again. Last year with Chelsea, you weren't really sure like what was a good result against Chelsea because you never really knew what Chelsea were going to get, and the same sort of applies with Leicester this season.
Sure, yeah.
You don't really know what Leicester you're going to get on the day. And I guess Middlesbrough scored 2 away from home. Negredo getting both. Mahrez penalty after Chambers' handball. And Slimani, 94th minute. I mean, boy, did Leicester need that, because without it, they are within sort of, I guess essentially what I'm saying is, without that, they go 15th, bottom 6.
I thought Negredo. It was quite interesting to see Negredo's 2 goals, because the first goal was very strange, and it was one of those where he's not been in good form. One of those kinds of goals where you just need it to go in, whatever, however.
Is it deflected? Is it kind of the way? Yeah, it looks like he hits it quite cleanly, but it seems to spin into the corner of the net quite strangely. Anyway,
yeah, it's what. Well, I was going to say it's that goal. If he doesn't sort of scuff that in and get it in, however he manages it, he's not going to score the second goal. Just as how confidence works with strikers. So it's quite funny to just see that kind of intangible aspect of football that a lot of people like to look at stats and stuff, but that particular thing with Negredo is kind of like the importance of confidence to a striker in particular.
Yeah, well, I mean, he scores again in the 71st minute. If he hasn't scored the first, what we're essentially saying is he may well have been taken off. So you don't get to be there.
And like Llorente, if they can get him firing.
Can I talk about something I'm really worried about?
Oh, Jack.
Is it football related?
Oh,
yeah, it is. Don't worry. Jamie Vardy. Just he said what a difference makes for Origi.
One pass that game, no shots.
Well, I saw a stat. He's not been very good. He's got like a pass completion this year of 60-something%. It's very, very low. He scored, 1 league goal this year? No, sorry, 2 league goals this year in 13 games.
I'd be interested to know what his pass completion was last year.
I saw, and I'll pull it up for us, but I saw an interesting stat last week, I think it was, or the week before. It was saying like Mahrez and Vardy had 1 pass between them since the start of October. So it was about a month and a half period of time. And it's like Slimani's come in and kind of just stolen his man. It's all just very sad.
You made it very Jeremy Kyle there. I wasn't not expecting that route from you. I get for Leicester. It's now they're in a relegation battle. Ranieri said as much. He said, "You know what? We're back down here." But
it was what he was maintaining for almost the whole of the title winning season,
which is
as well.
dangerous because Ranieri, he hasn't had Leicester in this position before. So I don't know at what point. So obviously Ranieri comes in, they win the Pigging League. You've got him now in charge of Leicester as a relegation candidate. We don't really. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I've not seen Claudio Ranieri be at a club where this has been the case.
No,
there may be an example somewhere, and I can't.
I think many of the criticisms that we initially had of Ranieri, and not so much criticism, but question marks that we had over him, will now begin to maybe be answered, because, as you say, Leicester are now in the position that many expected them to be in when Ranieri took over. So whether he can sort of handle this situation as well as he did last year.
That's a really interesting. Sorry, Jack, just quickly. That's a really interesting point, because when Ranieri was appointed, I think a lot of people wrote that off, thinking he's not the man to keep Leicester in the division. And that was my thinking at the time of, okay, I can see what you're doing. But by the same token, he might have been the perfect man to keep them flying high, giving them confidence every week, making them feel like world beaters. But to admit that, boys, we're in trouble this year. You got to get us out of this. I don't know how much of a motivator in that aspect is. He seems like he could inspire a team, but not necessarily motivate a team.
He was really good to keeping them calm throughout that incredible run. To win the league, and very, very calm, affable guy. You imagine he'd be the perfect type to give you that kind of
see home a title, essentially.
Exactly.
Whereas to get you out of a relegation battle is we've seen good managers go down to this level before and just suddenly think, I don't know what to do. I don't know how we get out of these scrapes. This manager's built for this, and I'm not sure Ranieri is one of those. It's still early to say, but we'll see. Jack?
I've done some stat digging on Vardy for you. So his actual pass completion is the exact same so far this season as last season.
Yeah, that's what
his shots per game last season was 3.2. This season it's 1.2. Oof. And Leicester are having 10.6 shots a game. So he's on about 10% of their overall shots, which for a striker,
not much.
That seems absolutely mad.
Scored 24 last year. 24.
He did.
It's a lot of goals.
And also, Leicester this season, 50% of their shots have been from outside the box.
Although it should be said that Vardy is sort of, throughout his career, this is quite funny to look at. No matter what level he's played at, by the way, so this Halifax and Fleetwood involved in this, but he scored 24, 3, 31, 4, 16, 5, 24, and now he's currently on 2. So logically, Vardy won't score more than 6 this season, just based on the stats.
He's going to be having an Ichibi this season.
But then next year, Leicester fans, I mean, get back on the horse. He might be in the Championship, but he will get at least 20. So look forward to that. Should we move on from?
I think that was meant to be a quick chat about Leicester and Middlesbrough, but it's anything but that.
Yeah, we'll whiz through a few others then. Hull City 1, West Bromwich Albion 1. Hull get another point on the board. I mean, good.
Are they up to 9 now?
I think they're 11 now, so Jack. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I've missed a few weeks of Hull actually playing football, apparently.
You have. So 1-1 there. Burnley 1, West Ham. Manchester City 2. Sergio Aguero getting back in the goals. Of course, Torre in the previous week, and now Aguero's back. 2 for him. A little bit fortunate, though, I dare say, City against Burnley. We're struggling.
Robinson was insane in goal. There was one save he made where he tipped around the ball. But
37-year-old Paul Robinson.
One of the best keepers. One of the best keepers of his generation. That was
England's Rose.
The thing is, though, right? He was genuinely brilliant, and then made one mistake from a Gary Neville back pass, which wasn't really his fault. And ever since that point, media sort of terminated him. That's
what England do to you.
Everyone was on his back, but he was genuinely at Leeds as well. And then he went to Spurs, didn't he? It was like a genuinely really good goalkeeper.
Rob Green as well, similar fate. I mean, his mistake wasn't bad luck, but it was a mistake.
Yeah.
And then he went to QPR.
Well,
we know what happens to people at QPR.
You've mentioned Rob Green, and I'm immediately feeling angry. So I wish you wouldn't.
I feel like you've told the story many a time. I don't know what podcast it was on.
Are we doing it again?
People can find it.
Are we doing it again?
You can do it again if you want.
All right, yeah. I was ball boying for Norwich, and Rob Green was in goal, and he told me to. I mean, I'm going to have to swear here, listeners, so apologies if you've got young people listening.
You've already sworn, Ben.
I did do a bigger swear earlier on. To fucking hurry up. So I then proceeded to spend the rest of the game taking my time. And since that moment, me and Rob Green have never really got on, I must say.
Ben was never a ball boy for Norwich again.
I was actually, probably about 6 or 7 times. But regardless of that, I was still pissed off with Rob Green and his attitude towards me. He was just, I mean, it was in the first half. That's why I'm annoyed. It wasn't like it was sort of last minute, get me the ball. It was first half. He was like, go hurry up. I'm like, hang on, chill out. And Robert Green, I don't know if anyone's ever sort of seen Robert Green, used to throw the ball out very weirdly. Not like you would traditionally.
He also used to throw the ball out his feet without looking behind him until one ill-fated incident.
Good one. Thank you, Jack.
Backing you up.
I mean,
we're on your
virtually,
team,
Jack, we're going to do one of these, Jack. High five. Lovely stuff. Right. Let's move on to Southampton-Everton, which was a curious game. Wasn't it?
You've shunted this down the running order a little bit, Ben. I think partly because of Charlie Austin.
No, it was I was actually doing chronological order, Kino. We did Saturday first. Sorry. Saints 1, Everton 0. Ronald Koeman, Jack, you must be delighted. It's gone back to St Mary's and it's come away empty-handed.
I am, and
a double whammy
scored.
for Jack.
And Aguero, Austin scored.
I
tell you what's happened there. What's happened there is I've brought my fantasy football team, and I've seen that Austin. It has got some points out of him.
You don't need to qualify it, Jack.
Highlight of the year right there. When Jack, we used to say Charlie Austin
the
says Aguero. Lovely.
Jack, does that explain the reason why you think he's so good? Have you been mixing the two up all year?
I can tell you that's not the case. I look at Charlie Austin. It's 9 points in my fantasy
and you see
Sergio
Aguero.
Yeah,
Aguero did get 12, to be fair, but it's Charlie Austin.
That's wonderful.
Wait, you mean Charlie Austin and Aguero are different people?
Yeah, just a little bit. A few differences, subtle differences. But in all seriousness, how many is that for Austin this year, Jack? I'm coming to you because I expect you'll know.
Bear with me.
How many minutes has he been on the pitch?
If I had
Jack?
to guess, I'll guess 7 for the season.
But no, so obviously,
what's his mum called?
He's got six goals.
What's his mother's maiden name?
He's got 6 goals in the Premier League and 2 in the Europa League.
What's his social security number?
How's his brother, Jack, at the moment?
He's got 9 goals in 17 in all competitions.
What's he doing for Christmas?
You meant to say he doesn't have a brother, actually.
He's coming to my house. I'm inviting him round. I haven't had the response yet, but the turkey's ready.
What's Diego Maradona like? Does he know? Oh, that's Aguero. Sorry, that's Aguero. Easy mistake to make. Sorry, that's Aguero. My bad.
Yeah, well, me and Charlie Austin are going to role-play gladiators with pugil sticks on Boxing Day. What will you be doing on Boxing Day?
I'll be watching that.
Getting shouted at by Rob Green is what you'll be doing. He's going to turn up at your house, look over your fence, and start screaming at you to hurry up.
Oh, not again, Rob.
What did you think? What did you think of the game, Jack?
Well, I was delighted, obviously, when the Austin goal flies in early on.
The first thing he says again. We've just been talking about it.
Got to remind you of it. But it's like Everton have looked really bad, and Saints just haven't really been taking their chances.
He's gone.
Are you okay
Keano's
there,
gone.
Callum?
One
You
win
okay there?
Jack, Southampton, Everton, 1 win in the last 8. What's going wrong for Koeman?
Everything. I mean, it's ever since I said I didn't like him, he's emotionally a wreck since he listened to the podcast.
That sounds like you said emotionally erect. My word, that was wrong.
Why not both?
Jack, I hope that you never say, you don't like me, because my fortunes will go the same way of Ronald Koeman.
If you want anyone cursing, let me know. I offer a paid service. The issue is, I actually was very pessimistic of Everton early on in the season because they got off to a great start. They were in 4th or 5th, I believe, after 6 games, and people were like, this could be, a Koeman side. He's going to do what he did with Southampton last year. They're going to get European football this year. And the wheels have kind of come off that.
What do you think's going wrong, Jack?
I think defensively they just don't quite look up to scratch. I thought Jagielka, he's not like a South American. Jagielka he's looked awful. I'm surprised he's still been playing as many games as he has been. He's looked like a player who's completely lost his confidence. You kind of look across the Everton side as a whole, and I think a big issue for them is, without sounding too, I guess, harsh, they don't actually have that much quality. It's a lot of players of yesteryear. I kind of look at players like Lennon, Coleman, Baines.
Coleman, I think.
Hang on.
I don't know, because these were
players of yesteryear.
Well, what I mean is they were very good, in the past. I don't mean that. Sorry, that makes it sound like I think they've got old. What I mean is, a few seasons ago, you would have put them right up there as being very good players who could actually push Everton towards Europe. Whereas a lot of these players, they're not of that calibre anymore, and they haven't been last year, especially.
I think the point of Jagielka is what a particular one I do agree with, because I'd be interested to see what Everton fans think of him still being in the team and playing as many games as he has. Because obviously a lot was made of them signing Williams, which probably one of the most consistent centre halves in the Premier League for the last 5 or 6 years. Very good signing. Cost them quite a bit of money for a 31-year-old, and a lot of people I think saw him as the new mainstay of their defence. The other options other than Jagielka, people like Funes Mori, like you say, I'm not sure are maybe ready or up to it at all to play in that role with him. So it does. There are a lot of question marks, particularly in the central defence thing. Right?
Well, of course they lost John Stones, and you wonder if that was always part of Everton's plan, was to lose Stones, bring in Williams, play him alongside Jagielka. I do wonder if that was the plan, or if there was something else there that just never sort of happened.
I guess my issue really with Everton is you kind of look across their squad. They've got players like Lennon, Cleverley, James McCarthy, Deulofeu, Morelos, Stecklenburg, Ross Barkley as well. These are players who, a few years ago, I think you would have rated them significantly higher than you do now. I feel like a lot of these players have taken a little bit of dip in form and quality over the last few years. And the issue is you kind of look at that Everton side as a whole. With the exception of Lukaku, I guess Gueye and Balassi, they've not actually signed that many kind of first-team players that have gone on to have a real tangible impact on this side as a whole. And at the same time, they've kind of lost players like Stones. And
Lukaku might be next, of course.
Exactly. I think Robler's actually in goal has been pretty impressive for them. I think he played one game and he played very, very well, and then he's kind of dropped back down the pecking order for Stecklenburg. I'm not a massive fan of Stecklenburg. I'm sorry, I'm cursing him now.
We should say though that
it's very Steve Claridge.
Everton are the sort of best of the rest, if you like. They are 7th.
I think, yeah.
It's like we're talking about Everton here, like they're West Ham, like they're 16th and struggling.
I think that is, obviously, we know how bad their form is, 1 win in 8. I think that's largely due to their excellent start to the season. I'm not sure if they hadn't have started so hot that they'd, be in this position. I know that's kind of obvious, but I'm not sure it was necessarily representative of how good they are, maybe, as a team.
The thing is, they've got Liverpool, Arsenal, United.
Yeah, tough fixtures coming up.
Watford. They've then got Leicester away. They've got a few very tricky games coming up, and they've still got to play City in this half of the season. Yeah. Like, they've actually not played that many of the teams ahead of them right now.
Yeah.
And I guess the worry is that you're in bad form and you're playing against teams like Southampton, which I feel like
of course, the kind
you
of
back
game
yourself to win. And it's also the kind of game that's going to be a difference maker between potential European football this year and not. And I think if you look across that Everton side, that's a side that has ambitions to play in Europe in the not-too-distant future. And there are a lot of players who I imagine their kind of contentness at the club, that their willingness to stay at the club very much boils down to, can this club have a tangible kind of impact and presence in Europe for a few consecutive years.
I think particularly players like Ross Barkley, who, for his future sort of national prospects as well, will need to be in Europe consistently.
Yeah, well, Frank, I mean, I'll get on his back here. He needs to start bloody playing better then. Because it's all well and good you saying, you know what, if I want to be in the team and I want to progress my career, I'm going to have to move. Well, no. First of all, you have to perform week in, week out for your club side. And for me, Ross Barkley, for all of his ability, is nowhere near consistent enough. Like to be anything, to get a move to anyone. Like who
to be anything.
But at this point though, like how can he justify saying I want to move to Man United or I want to move to like Tottenham at this stage? I mean,
yeah.
How can he say that? He can't because he's not playing well enough. And until he starts putting in performances, same with Lukaku. Lukaku can talk about his big move all he likes, but he's got to start again, getting back into form and scoring week in, week out. You look at other players in the league that are performing. Charlie Austin, Jack, for example. Like, you don't see Charlie Austin saying, I want a big move anywhere. Maybe different points in his career, but you've got to first do it before you can start demanding things.
I do feel bad for Lukaku because he's got 7 goals this season. The rest of the Everton squad have chipped him with 8.
Yeah. But
he is very much putting the team on attack, and he's got 3 assists, so he's been involved in more than half their goals this season.
All right, maybe not Lukaku then. Fine, he's doing all right. Well, I'll let him off.
I think what's fair to say, though, is that there are sort of uneven levels of performance from players in that team. Yeah. As you say, players like Lukaku...
Which for a team, generally, it's really difficult, because if you look across and you think, you're not trying as hard as me, you're not playing as well as me, that can be really disruptive for morale.
Yeah, and I think in a team, maybe, we've mentioned teams like Swansea that have, the odd match-winning player at the lower half of the Premier League table. That's fine. You can win the odd game doing that, but for a team who really wants to challenge for Europa League football, it's a problem.
Consistent. I do think Bolassi's played well for them.
Yeah,
he's actually been a bit of he's not chipped in with much.
Is that because he was at Palace, Jack? He was scarily good.
Well, he was scarily good. But I feel like he's a player actually who fell off a bit at Palace. A lot of Palace fans were getting on his back, saying that he was kind of a bit overrated, that people were only really talking about him because of the season he'd had before last. And actually, I think, at Everton, he actually links up quite nicely with Lukaku and he offers them something out wide.
They speak the same language, Jack.
I think they were kind of lacking.
They speak the same, I forget the name of the exact dialect, but it's a sort of, because obviously they're both hailing from, I think, Congo, and they have the same sort of
the Democratic
language.
Republic. We should clarify.
Yeah.
So
yes, Dr. Congo.
I think just running Everton, a big part of football is trusting your teammates to do the right thing. And it looks a bit like Everton have started to question each other. And it's going to go one of two ways, isn't it? Either they're going to bounce back and start playing well again, or they're going to keep sliding, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Koeman to get the results. If he brought in to take Everton to the next level, it was considered an upgrade on Southampton. If he's not careful, there'll be a switching of places between those two clubs very, very soon. Only 2 points behind now, Southampton behind Everton. So possible. And of course, a lot was made of that. Sideways move. Is it enough of a leap? And Koeman's the man to prove it.
Loads of money, wasn't there?
Three games left to quickly talk about then. Manchester United won, West Ham United won. Sacco scored very, very early for West Ham, and then Ibra equalised. The big story, of course, though, is nothing to do with the match. It's all to do with Jose Mourinho kicking a bottle.
We shouldn't give him the dignity of talking about that, because I think that's what he wants us to do, really.
Arsenal 3, Bournemouth 1.
Yeah, very quickly on that.
We talk about United so much.
I will say, United's worst start, I believe, in something like 13 years.
But the thing is, right, yeah, that's true. Everybody, including myself, a Liverpool fan, I kind of want United to be better. There's so much good things that could happen within this United team that aren't happening. Mkhitaryan starts again tonight for United in the League Cup as we record.
I quite like watching United, Everton, Watford and West Brom squabble for 6th in the league at the moment. I'm quite enjoying that.
Jack's a year on Twitter.
One thing we didn't mention, sorry about that, so I don't want to pull it back to a later show.
We are doing.
But we didn't mention Josh Sims for Southampton, who, how old is he? I think he was making his debut, 17?
7 or 8 years old?
My favourite thing from this week was after Woodburn scored for Liverpool with Jake Humphries.
Sorry.
I felt as though
the weather on Monday was a bit chilly, wasn't
it? Jake Humphries tweeted out, a player born in 2010 just scored. Let that sink in.
Was it Jake Humphries or someone else? Because I saw that.
It was Jake Humphries. I saw my favourite tweet was a prize saying, "Congratulations to Woodburn, who scored on his debut age 6 today."
It's actually Jake Humphrey. I met him at Norwich once. It's not Humphreys. It's Humphrey.
Oh, sorry, Humphrey.
I'm just saying. Just thought
I
it was
don't
best.
care.
Okay, it wasn't him either, but we'll carry on.
I don't like BT Sport.
Arsenal 3, Bournemouth 1. Important result for Arsenal. Alexis Sanchez getting 2. Theo Walcott scored. He's lethal, people. He's back. Big season for Walcott. We won't talk too much about this game. Other than that,
dreadful error from Steve Cook, which you'll want to forget.
Yeah, Steve Cook was the player that made a mistake and then scored, didn't he? Recently, that was.
He
Steve
likes
Cook.
to make a mistake.
He likes a mistake.
He looks like a manager already.
He will be
Well,
one.
the sad thing is, he's been at that club such a long time, Bournemouth. I feel like he's one of those players who's just so ingrained that they just won't.
How old is he? How old is Mr. Cook?
I don't think he's actually that old. I feel like he might be 27. I like Mr. Cook. I'm going to check his age.
It makes you described him as already being a manager. I just sort of pictured him as a
Steve
teacher.
Cook and it came up with a bodybuilder age 31. Let me try again.
He's only 25. We're saying he looks like a manager.
No, he's not.
He is.
25.
No.
Steve Cook's 25.
He's like one of those
Amazing.
14-year-olds at school with a beard that's bigger than yours, though. Do you know the one I'm on about? Like, you're in sixth form, you look down, there's like a year 7 just with like the biggest beard in the world. Yeah. He's like that.
They've also got Lewis Cook, who they signed from Leeds. They've got a few Cooks. Too many Cooks spoil the Bournemouth.
Sorry, Mr. Cook. We've been a bit disrespectful.
I mean,
Cook.
you have been.
I mean, I've just realised that Mr. Cook's younger than me. I don't know how I feel about calling him Mr. Cook anymore. Oh, dearie me, that's awful. But no, good result for Arsenal. Not one of these results that won't define the season of Bournemouth, so I don't think they'll be too worried about it. And finally, Watford 0, Stoke 1, Aurelio Gomez own goal. I mean,
he didn't get chipped. That's what I always expect when I see like
we've
Gomez
told this story
goal.
on the podcast before. I'm sure we have. Kino, do you remember this? We did tell you this. The story about Aurelio Gomez being chipped. I mean, it's worth telling again. We're really
it was against Norwich. Was the opening game of the season?
Yeah, it was one of the opening games of the season. It was was it Watford at the time in the Championship?
It was Watford v Norwich.
Yeah, and Norwich's plan, because they knew what Aurelio Gomez was just to chip him. Like, literally, they said after the game, we're going to try and chip him. And then after the game, Bradley Johnson did it, I think. And after the game, it was like, yeah, we looked at some of the videos and our plan was to chip him all game. It was like, chipping him? That's not something you should be practicing.
They scored 2 like that. And also, shout out to Bradley Johnson, scored for Derby against Norwich this week.
Yeah, Norwich fans aren't very happy about that. Britos got sent off in that game as well. Shame. Needless 90th minute red card.
Don't start us on the Championship, because I'd have to tell you about our 8-game unbeaten.
Well, tell us all about it, Kino, because we've got a little bit of time at the end of this show. So go on, tell us all about it.
So, there's an 11-point gap right now.
Thanks for the contribution. Right, let's wrap
between us and Brighton and Hove Albion. They are in second place.
Scarily good. I've seen them live this year.
Kino,
beat Norwich 5-0.
Kino, make a prediction now, Kino.
26 games to go.
Where are Aston Villa finishing this season? It is the 1st of January, when December, sorry. Make a prediction. Be bold.
For the record.
Yeah.
For the record.
Where are Aston Villa going? Currently, listeners, 11th, 18 games gone, 25 points, level with Hull. Hull with Preston and Fulham.
At the end of last season, I said I'd buy Kino a ticket to the playoff final.
Okay,
to
Kino.
Go.
Okay, well, over to Kino. Go on, Kino.
Now, my housemate, of course, who's a Birmingham City fan, have been saying, Jack, you mentioned the playoff final. There's a possibility that we could have a second City either playoff semi-final over 2 legs, which I happen to think would be better than the final, or, of course, the final at Wembley. Now, there's part of me that is utterly dreading that. Also, it would be amazing, but could be terrifying at the same time. I think, and this is the vibe that I'm getting from a lot of other fans right now, Brighton, who are currently in second, would have to drop quite a few points. Although there's 26 games remaining, they'd have to drop quite a few points for us to catch them up for automatic.
So I think we will be just third?
Third or fourth, playoffs.
I mean, you're 4 points off right now. Derby and Norwich have fallen off a cliff.
I think we could be in the playoff places by Christmas quite easily.
There it is.
But it's whether we can.
You're 13 points off second. You're 7 points off the relegation zone. I think you need to get a reality check.
No, I think it's possible. I think Villa are going to win the league. I agree with you, Kino. So Kino's saying they're going to win the league.
If you want, I can come to the playoff final. I've been to 4 playoff finals in my life. I've watched 3 teams lose that I wanted to win.
You're making it sound like you've been in sort of the same way you get a McDonald's coffee. You're making it sound like, I've still got some. I've got to fill one more in. I get a free ticket to the playoff final.
Maybe.
No, that's why you're offering it out to Kino.
Is that how it works?
Yeah,
do you want my prediction?
Yes.
Categorically.
Number.
For Third place.
4
points behind Brighton.
4 points behind Brighton. Oh my God.
So when you finish 22nd behind Wigan Athletic.
Oh well, maybe not Brighton, but I guess it would have to be them if we're doing that well. I think third.
Jack, do you want to make a prediction on Villa?
11th, and they'll stay where they are now. Mediocrity.
I love it. And will Charlie Austin be with them by the end of the season?
Well, no.
I'm not sure I'd love that.
I mean, you would love that.
Maybe.
Let's face it. You'd be a much better team. Right then, that does bring us to the end of the chat. No Twitter question this week either, mainly because we've forgotten, or the almost
we didn't do one
award-winning
last week either.
No, the almost award-winning For the Fans podcast has taken a back seat with Twitter questions. We'll make sure that next week we definitely do one. Maybe actually, what we could do, if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment for us to ask next week, and we'll choose the best question and send it out to the wider listening world. But if you have enjoyed listening, thank you for listening. We do appreciate it. YouTube.com/ForTheFansShow. If you've listened on there, please do remember to like the video with iTunes, rate the podcast, and anywhere else you can find us. If you've enjoyed listening, thanks very much again. Jack, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been great to talk about Austin.
Lovely, and
that will go down as a sort of cherished.
It was the best faux pas I've ever heard Jack do. And Keno, pleasure as always.
Yeah, thank you, boys. Oh, go and check out everyone Classic Football shirts.
Yes, of course.
You've heard a few messages throughout the show, but go get them. You can probably get a nice deal in time for Christmas.
Indeed.
Wow.
They were doing a Black Friday sale, actually. Don't know if that's still going on. Probably should have mentioned it. Right then.
Get anything on Black Friday, guys? Football related or otherwise?
I bought this microphone here and a webcam.
Oh,
this
is the kind of money that we invest in the listeners.
Yeah,
equipment.
I should say no For the Fans money was used in the purchasing of these items. Now then, with love with care, Minutes Benji from Jack, Keno, and myself. We'll see you again next week for some more For the Fans action. We'll try and record it earlier in the week, boys. Yes, deal, good, committing, yeah,
deal,
brilliant.
I'm skiing.
They sound. Are you actually really? Are you actually skiing?
No, week after. Sorry.
Okay, right. Well, Keno's not skiing, so we will see you again next week. For For the Fans, goodbye.
It's a sculpture of a gold Benji. It's perfection.
Keno, I think you're going to have to be calling for an oxygen mask over here, my friend.